From capitalizing on the huge success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, to figuring out the perfect setting for Link's first adventure on the big screen, the Legend of Zelda producer wants to make a movie for Nintendo's other big franchise. And honestly, after the success of Mario, it makes perfect sense. I mean, if there's anything we've learned about Nintendo's strength over the past decade or so, it's the fact that their nostalgia-driven franchises do really well, no matter where you put them. And of course, the new Super Mario Bros. Movie is the example of that. Not only is it one of the highest-grossing animated movies ever, at over $1.2 billion, but it's on its way to becoming the #1, even overtaking the likes of Frozen and The Lion King. And that just speaks volumes about how massive Nintendo's franchises can be. Oh, and let's not forget, it's not like it got overly positive reviews. In fact, it's only sitting at 59% on Rotten Tomatoes. But again, fans of the franchise really don't care about any of that, because the audience score is still at 96%. So for Nintendo, it's the perfect opportunity to push ahead for a Zelda movie and keep the momentum going. Although, it seems like that is exactly what's gonna happen, because in a recent interview with Polygon, the series' longtime producer, Eiji Aonuma, was asked if he'd be interested in turning The Legend of Zelda into a movie as well, considering Mario's recent success. His answer? Of course he's interested. More specifically, he said, "I have to say I'm interested for sure." That being said, even though Aonuma wants to adapt the franchise into a movie, he's not actually the one who's in control of that. After all, Nintendo has to be interested as well. As a matter of fact, that's what the Zelda producer said too. Oh, and let's not forget, Nintendo has a very strong grip on its franchises, and it won't hand them out to anyone to experiment with. So, as long as someone doesn't come up with a really compelling argument for a Zelda movie, which would probably include a script and all the other logistical problems that come with it, we're not gonna see anything. Although, The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom director, Hidemaru Fujibayashi, also chimed in during the interview and said, maybe the voice of the fans is what's important here. I mean, he's indirectly asking the fans to ask Nintendo for it. After all, some public support and demand go a long way towards making projects like these happen. Oh, and yeah, then there's the legendary game designer and the creator of Mario and Zelda, Shigeru Miyamoto. He needs to be fully on board with the idea too, especially considering just how closely involved he was with the Super Mario Bros. Movie. So, what does he think about it? Well, Screen Rant actually asked him about it during his Mario press tour. And even though he didn't explicitly say that a Zelda movie was happening, he did seem very open to it. Miyamoto talked about how Nintendo has got a shared vision of creation with the Mario studio, Illumination, which, according to him, will lead to more opportunities in the future. I mean, hey, it's better than nothing, right? But making a Zelda movie isn't as easy as Mario. You know why? Because The Legend of Zelda has a silent protagonist. Now, obviously, you could say that Mario's been silent in most of the games. Well, apart from his Wahoo or Let's-A Go, of course. But the difference is that we already had that bizarre Super Mario adaptation in the 90s. Not to mention, there have been countless animated TV shows about the character too. So at least he's got some personality. Besides, he's a plumber, so that makes him somewhat relatable in terms of real life. Link, on the other hand, is a blank slate of a character. He doesn't really have any motivations other than protecting Princess Zelda. Not to mention, he doesn't even express himself when he's up against someone like Ganon, who's literally trying to take over the world. In fact, he's such a silent protagonist that even in some of the more recent games, like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, he just has a poker face the entire time Zelda is talking to him. He doesn't respond at all, and the princess just continues with her conversation like she didn't just have the most awkward exchange in the world. Sure, it's bearable in a video game, where these moments are few and far between, but in a 90-minute movie? Not a chance. Of course, the easy solution would be to give Link a few lines, or even make him a Mario-like character. But the thing is, we've already had a fully voice-acted Link before, and let's just say it wasn't the greatest. That being said, if there's anyone who can figure this problem out, it's Nintendo and Illumination. After all, the fact that they managed to turn Super Mario Bros. Into an actual compelling story just cannot be undermined. Not to mention, Miyamoto's team are the masters of solving these problems with their genius ideas, so they could easily figure something out for this as well. Besides, Nintendo is on a hot streak right now with its IP, and no matter if it's Mario, Zelda, Metroid, or literally anything, it all seems to turn into an instant hit. So if they're superstitious about this stuff, then they can't pick a better time for a Zelda movie. Oh, and yeah, then there's arguably the most important reason for adapting the franchise into a film. I mean, The Legend of Zelda has never been bigger than this. Seriously, while Mario's always been one of, if not the most important franchise in video game history, Zelda's story has been a bit more subdued. Sure, people absolutely love it, and the games have sold super well in the past too, but they've been nowhere near the level of Mario. Until now, that is. With Breath of the Wild, Nintendo really managed to crack the code for what makes a universally loved Zelda game. And with the release of Tears of the Kingdom, they've only doubled down on that idea. I mean, the game has managed to sell over 10 million copies within the first 3 days of its release, which is absolutely mind-blowing. In fact, that makes it one of the fastest-selling video games of all time. Oh, and just for context, the last big Mario game, which was Super Mario Odyssey, has sold around 24 million units in its lifetime. So not only is The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom on track to beat it, but it could also become one of Nintendo's best-selling games ever. And to not capitalize on its recent popularity and announce a movie would be a missed opportunity. Although, with the company winding down the Mario movie and releasing it on streaming platforms, we can expect them to shift their focus to the next big thing very soon. Sure, that also includes spin-off films in the Super Mario franchise, like a Donkey Kong movie, but a Zelda movie is definitely on the cards as well. Besides, this isn't the first time we've heard rumblings of an adaptation. After all, there was a Zelda Netflix show in the works as well. And that, folks, proves that Nintendo's been thinking about bringing the franchise to other audiences for a while now. Sure, their partnership with Netflix didn't quite work out the way they'd like, but now they've got a very capable partner in Illumination. Although there are some reservations among fans about letting the studio take control of the franchise. You know why? Well, they think the studio's visual style, which they also used for Mario, doesn't particularly suit the tone and theme of The Legend of Zelda. So instead, they want a Japanese studio to turn it into a movie. Of course, the obvious first choice would be someone like Studio Ghibli, since they've made some of the most visually impressive animated movies of all time. But they don't usually tend to take on licensed IP, which could complicate things. Oh, and then there's another issue that Nintendo would have to solve, which is the time it takes to make an animated movie. I mean, just think about how long it took for them to release the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It was in the works for ages. In fact, after they were done with the story and all the other pre-production stuff, it still took them almost 2.5 years to get that movie to the big screen. So even if Nintendo went ahead and greenlit a Zelda project right now, it'd still take them at least 6 to 7 months just to get the scripts ready. Like, do they just copy one of the games? Maybe Ocarina of Time for its popularity? Or Skyward Sword because it's the first in the timeline? Or do they come up with an original story set in Hyrule? These are some pretty difficult problems. And then, once they've gone through these, they've still got to actually make the movie. Meaning, we're looking at a potential 2026 release date. Now, will the franchise even have as much hype attached to it by then? Or does that not even matter for something that's as massive as The Legend of Zelda? Well, that remains to be seen. So, there you have it. From figuring out the perfect setting for Link's first adventure on the big screen, to cashing in on the huge success of the Super Mario Bros. Movie, that was all for The Legend of Zelda producer wanting to make a new movie.